What's up, wrestling fans? Two Bros Wrestling Show coming at you live?
Ish.
Live
We're
enough.
live-ish.
Ish. What's happening, Kevin?
We are coming at you about a month out from WrestleMania. Hard to believe. And because we're only a month out, Doug, we are all Mania kind of all the time now. Our main event topic tonight is WrestleMania Mania.
WrestleMania Mania.
Talking about what it means this time of year to be a
Yep.
wrestling fan and why it is the best time of year and whether or not this road to WrestleMania thus far with a month to go is meeting expectations. We will go through all the matches and whether or not we think they're cutting the right way for us, or if they need a little simmering, if there's a little spice, a little something extra needed.
Someone need a little spice sprinkled on them, maybe.
That's right. That is what we will do after.
Ooh. There it is.
The opening bell. Let's start off tonight. With some uncertainty about the Hall of Fame. For a while, we had that uncertainty of the WWE Hall of Fame, and they didn't announce, as they normally do, that your WrestleMania weekend would include the Hall of Fame if you go to SmackDown. That's the way they've done it for the last 4 or 5 years. We did know that they were hoping to do something a little different this year, and now we know what it is. And that is the fact that once again, they are going to return to having the Hall of Fame as a separated, ticketed event.
Yeah, I like
which
that.
is great. I never cared for people were burned out after a couple hours of SmackDown, and they, these folks were in the SmackDown ring. They just took the ropes down. I liked it when it looked like an award show and you were on a stage and people were all dressed nice. And so that's what they're doing. It will take place at the I'm mispronouncing this, the Fontainebleau, Las Vegas, in their theater. But get this, though. For every good thing, there's a bad, right? It is still going to be Friday night. It's still going to be after SmackDown. SmackDown is still going to be a 3-hour show. And that means on Peacock, they currently have it ready to be streaming at 1 a.m. Eastern time. It will be live at 1 in the morning. The event is listed as 10 o'clock Vegas time, which means 1 o'clock for those of us on the East Coast. That's a little late to be staying up the night before WrestleMania.
Yeah. But it will make for some great pregame day of, though.
Though, how that goes. These are old timers who get up there, tell stories. If it starts at 1, they won't wrap up till 3 in the morning.
They won't.
But as far as pre-gaming the next day, it could be one of those things, but there is other things as well that morning. Let's talk a little bit more about what's happening WrestleMania weekend. They've dropped a few additional events. You may have seen a few of these if you've seen any WWE programming this week. First, we have a roast of WrestleMania.
Nice.
This is a non-televised comedy roast that will take place again late, really late, because it is scheduled for Sunday night after the second night of WrestleMania. Comedian Tony Hinchcliffe is going to host, and appearances on this comedy roast are slated from Sami Zayn, Braun Strowman, Paul Heyman, and The Miz are among those WWE talents who are scheduled to appear and I guess do the roasting. Also added to the festivities in Las Vegas was that rumored NXT show that we mentioned a few weeks back. They are extending WrestleMania weekend to not end as it traditionally has done with a Monday Night Raw show. They will continue in Vegas until Tuesday night for the regular broadcast of NXT. And not forgetting, of course, that NXT also has their big Stand and Deliver PLE scheduled for WrestleMania Saturday early in the afternoon. That's how I'll probably be pre-gaming, is watching more wrestling early in the afternoon and then trying to figure out when in the world I want to actually catch up with the Hall of Fame from 3 in the morning the night before.
This is one of those times when insomnia will pay off for me, and I'll be able to get caught up on even more wrestling that weekend.
You will have to you can WrestleMania all weekend long without a doubt. If you were in Vegas, you could do even more, Doug, because the WWE ID tournament to crown the first WWE ID champions will also be taking place during Mania weekend. It's appropriate when you consider that nearly all the indie promotions descend on the Mania host city every single year, especially now that this WWE ID program is sort of a partnership with the indies. It's kind of cool that they would do it while Mania is in town. It makes a lot of sense. First round of matches are going to be at the GCW show on April 16th at the Palms in Vegas. And then another round will be at the FSW show on April 18th in the FSW Arena.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, Doug, for your WrestleMania planning, this is also something you can't watch. So you're going to have to buy a ticket for this. You can have lunch with John Cena. That's right. You can.
But do we want to? Do we really want to?
I don't know. Maybe you do. I know you said you're pre-gaming maybe by watching the Hall of Fame, but if you decide not to do that and you decide to go to Vegas on Saturday, you can have lunch with the Doctor of Thugonomics at a event that's supposedly limited to as few as 20 people. Very exclusive, 5-star restaurant, Las Vegas Strip.
What's the price on that, Kevin?
You got 25 grand just burning a hole in your pocket?
Man, if I did, I'd have a nice vintage ES335.
Or you could have lunch with John Cena for $25,000. $1,000. That's crazy. But hey, I'm sure it'll be a sold out lunch. I can almost guarantee it.
Absolutely. By somebody who's already spent like 50 grand on the entire weekend flying from God knows where, staying at some nice place with 2 or 3 of their closest friends.
I mean, I looked at just the Hall of Fame when it was a separate ticketed event thinking, I wonder how much those tickets are. Yeah, it's like 700, 500. And you're right. If you're got a decent seat for Mania, you're already spending $1,000 for those 2 nights. And a couple hundred if you want a really good seat for that SmackDown, another couple hundred for that Raw. If you want to see Stand and Deliver, and let's not even get into the One Dead Man show and all the signings at WWE World. Like you can drop a good 8 to 10 grand having yourself a WrestleMania good time on that weekend.
WrestleMania good time. Probably other ways to spend 8 to 10 grand in Nevada to have a good time, but what do I know?
That is true. It's been a minute since we've seen Tyler Bate, but actually it's been more like 8 months since we've seen Tyler Bate. His last appearance was back in July-ish when he tore his pec in an NXT match. Reportedly, though, Bate is cleared to return and could be back on TV at any time. He is expected to join the Raw brand when he comes back to television. Fightful Select had a report this week that answered a question I think that a lot of us had, I know I did, about this NXT TNA partnership. And that question is whether or not talent that cross over to the other promotion are compensated via bonuses or some other financial means for these extra appearances. And reportedly, yeah, which is great. If you appear off your brand on someone else's show, you're getting a bonus right now for those crossovers. They're not saying, there's no report as to how much this is. I would be curious. Is it the same for NXT folks who go to TNA?
Yeah.
Does someone like the Hardys get more because they're on WWE programming, and for I don't know. I can't imagine it's equal going both ways.
Right.
Yeah. And who pays? Does the WWE folks pay for, the rights to have the TNA talent and vice versa? And if so, are they able to pay as much as WWE when, Cora Jade shows up or whatever? I don't know. It's very interesting. There was
But
a
at least,
caveat in this story that mentioned,
oh,
though, that even though they do receive these bonuses for crossover appearances, they don't count these appearances. They don't count towards the talent's contract guarantees because they have a certain set number of dates, as that would apparently negatively impact the whole independent contractor status
oh,
of
we
the
can't have
talent.
that.
No, because
Cannot
then
have
you could
that.
unionize
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe want some health care or some other bad
Or an
things
off
could come of that.
season or something like
Yeah,
that.
an off season. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Some disappointing news next up here. I hate this, Doug. I know you're going to hate this, but this is kind of bad news for Ohio Valley Wrestling. But their
Oh
recent
no.
documentary, Wrestlers, will not be picked up for
No.
a second season. It was so good. For those who
So
didn't watch it,
good.
so good. Netflix had the right of first refusal, having been the original home for season one, which began in September of 2023. No word if the series could be possibly picked up elsewhere, but you
Hmm.
have to wonder if this decision had anything to do with. There's been some changes over at Netflix since September 2023. I can't
Hmm.
really remember what that was, but
Right.
I think they had some changes
Yeah.
in that time. It could be some sort of exclusivity deal. Maybe WWE doesn't want poor little OVW since they're no longer aligned like they were
Hmm.
way back in the day. But
Yeah.
unfortunate because that show was the bomb. That show was amazing.
Maybe they'll pick it up on Max. Yeah.
There we there
I,
we
I
go.
I seem to remember some of the OVW folks showing up on some Max affiliated brand during that run. So
I don't know that it wouldn't be the worst thing for Tony to incorporate an OVW the way that WWE used to,
yeah,
and have their own little performance system, performance center there in Louisville. I would be all about that. I know you and I
absolutely.
would probably go check
Oh
it out.
yeah, absolutely. And, it does make sense because I think they kind of were at least flirting with that idea way back in the day with the Nightmare Factory.
Yeah,
Uh,
they
Not
were.
not
And
not just a
then
faction,
what?
but
Then
a lot of
what
COVID.
happened to that?
I don't remember. I think someone from the Nightmare Factory left the company. I think. I don't know.
Poor
Well,
Tony.
maybe I can Google later. But
Poor Tony Khan.
I know. Poor,
Uh,
poor billionaire.
we will wrap up our opening bell with just some congratulations, and that is to AEW star Layla Gray and while we're talking OVW, former OVW heavyweight champion Luke Curtis for getting married over the weekend. So, congratulations to
Wait,
the
did they get
happy
engaged
couple.
during the Netflix show?
See, I think, yeah, I believe
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are
yeah.
correct.
Because wasn't she about to go to AEW and they had like a thing? And I'm gonna have to go
Yes,
back and watch it. Somebody
I
comment
believe
on
you're
this.
right.
Let
I
me
believe
know. Am
you're
I right?
right.
Am I wrong? But yeah, I thought so. I
Hey,
think. Yeah.
I'm doing segues without even realizing that I set it
Look at
up that
you.
way. But I have set this up. The main event
Let's do
to
it.
talk
Yes.
WrestleMania
Let me
Mania.
pull WrestleMania stuff.
It is the most magical time of the wrestling year.
It
The
is.
granddaddy of them all, the show of shows, the showcase of the immortals, the Super Bowl of wrestling, wrestling Christmas, really, whatever you
Wrestling
want to call it.
Christmas. Yes,
Um,
that's where I was leaning. Wrestling Christmas.
Doug, I one of the reasons I like to refer to it as wrestling Christmas is that when I was a kid, Christmas was actually kind of a melancholy time. As much as I looked forward to it, as soon as you tear through those gifts, it's over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
disappointment kind of sets in. And sometimes you watch WrestleMania and the matches don't live up, or you're just like let down that it's over.
Right.
It is the anticipation of Christmas, right? It's the making of the list and the what is
Yes.
it going to be? What am I going to get? It is
The
this time
build
of
up.
year.
Yes.
Yes, it's honestly the journey that makes Christmas special. And I feel the same can be said about WrestleMania season. This part of we'll watch a great pay per view, I'm sure, and then it'll be over with and we're on to the next thing. But for the next month, we're just talking Mania, thinking Mania. This is
Mhm.
the fun time of year. And because of that, we thought that for our main event topic, we will look at why this part of the wrestling calendar is the way that it is, and whether or not we feel like thus far on the road to WrestleMania 41, if it is meeting the standards of WrestleMania season. So,
I'm
Doug,
gonna like this. This is, the analogy is great because you have the build up to Christmas, the build up to WrestleMania. Let's get into it. Let's do this.
I mean, Mania is perceived, obviously, as the mecca of wrestling events. But why do you think that is? It's not like it's a guaranteed slam dunk as best pay per view of the year. And let's be honest, just because of sheer numbers, most years will end with a pay per view being better than WrestleMania, or several being better than WrestleMania, or match of the year contender very rarely comes from Mania. Again, sheer numbers dictates that. But why do you think still that Mania is perceived as just being a cut above anything and everything else?
The historical perspective, right? We have WrestleMania, not necessarily the first or the best, but the longest running, the historical ow, the
Historical
historical
out.
or the historical cat. The just a history of WrestleMania, starting with WrestleMania 1 and being attacked back at. There we go. Go over there. Go on. Just that whole historical perspective of original WrestleMania, this huge spectacle that just keeps growing and growing. What other wrestling PLE pay per view is there that is now hitting number 41 this year? Is there anything even close to this? No, it's a spectacle from day one, and only grew, and really, with everything that Vince McMahon is, we do have to acknowledge his creations, like WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I agree with you 100%. I I hate the term sports entertainment, honestly, but wrestling
Mhm.
is both sport as
Yes.
well as entertainment. And so, every sport has a big ending event, whether it's the
Hmm.
Super Bowl or the World Series. And then there's an off season that wrestling,
Yes.
doesn't have. Um, Entertainment, they have their big award shows like the Grammys or the
Yes.
Oscars or Emmys, things that highlight the best talent and acts of the prior year. To me, WrestleMania is an attempt to do both of these things in one
Oh,
event,
yeah.
because I mean, it is an artificial line in the sand because there is no off season. It's not like here's the big ending and now we're going to go away for a while. But it does unofficially mark the end of one wrestling season to start anew the following night on Raw.
That is
And
a
it really,
very, yeah, it is that season finale, but you go
yeah,
right back in. You don't have to wait like a summer or anything to get back into the series. It just resets.
before wrestling just always was and then just always went on, and you didn't build to a big event. So it was Vince's attempt to have a Super Bowl, even if he didn't want to have an off season.
Hmm.
And to an extent, I think it's worked, and it really is also has elements of an award show, outside of just the Hall of Fame element of
Hmm.
awards. Like you get that extra glitz, special legend returns, special attractions, matches that you would never normally have, highlights of stories and stars, all from the prior year. Your biggest story is going to culminate at WrestleMania and pay off on a big special night, which is
Hmm.
exactly what an award show tends to be. WrestleMania just hits different. And no matter how many other promotions will ever try to have this as our signature event, I mean, I love AEW, I love New Japan,
Hmm.
love that there's a large wrestling landscape. No one's signature event comes anywhere close to feeling like
Right.
WrestleMania. There is only one Mania, and I think you're right. Part of it is the one that has been there since the beginning of basically the modern pay-per-view PLE industry. It's still the big dog standing, and will
Mhm.
always be that until WWE folds one day.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Christmas finale. I love the season finale, the series finale. I mean, it just is. the spectacle of it, the historical perspective, the working towards it, and honestly, just like Christmas, it starts a little earlier every year. Sometimes the build to WrestleMania starts on Raw the night after WrestleMania. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I admit I've had my WrestleMania tree up since November. So I've
I
just got
keep
to
ours
admit.
up all year round, so
Even the most diehard AEW mark has to admit that they're, AEW can't say this is our WrestleMania. It doesn't matter if they pack 80,000 people in a stadium for All In. Like WrestleMania is still just one of one.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of one, let's talk about that very first one. I have memories of that very first Mania. I'm sure you do as well. I remember at the time being a little put off by it just because I did not necessarily care to see Mr. T wrestle, even though
Hmm.
I was intrigued about what is this that they're putting, what that's a main event. Mostly I was just upset because the NWA kid in me knew that there was a little thing called Starcade that beat WWE to the punch when it came to these
Right.
big spectacle show broadcasts. Of course, WWE did it bigger and grander. And as you mentioned earlier, which one is hitting 41? It is not Starcade that is hitting
No.
41, but WWE got a lot of credit for really what Jim Crockett Promotions tried with closed circuit TV with that Flair for the Gold event
Hmm.
back in '83. That could really be considered the start of it. But obviously, Vince had the money and the resources and the networking to do everything bigger and better. And WrestleMania is, the history is written by the winners, and
Exactly.
WWE won. Um, did you have any memories specifically of that first
So
one?
WrestleMania and honestly the whole WWE, WWF back then confused me because like you and I are both like Crocker promotion kids, right? And these were like really like neon bright stars, wrestling superstars as opposed to like the rough and rugged the Dusty Rhodes, the Arn Andersons that we were used to. I mean,
So wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that like 5-year-old Doug was more intrigued with the Four Horsemen than Liberace?
Horseman brother. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But and then like you say, Mr. T, specifically what I remember about Mr. T's involvement with WrestleMania is Mr. T being on um Saturday Night Live with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
What was the Billy Crystal character, the Fernando's Hideaway
Oh,
or whatever it is? You're like marvelous. That's what I
yeah.
mostly remember about that WrestleMania.
It is the hype that I remember too. I remember seeing them on the Today Show when they were on with Johnny Carson, and they were. It was everywhere. And on the one hand, as a kid, it was cool to see like the thing I love, like pop culture is paying attention to
Yeah.
wrestling. On the other hand, I'm still like, wait a minute, Mr. T is tag teaming in a and that's a main event. um,
Yeah.
but obviously, you have to start somewhere, and WrestleMania 1 was kind of just an experiment, the one that has proven successful, obviously, or we wouldn't be having this show about it. At
Mhm.
this point in time, I have seen all. It's crazy to think that there's been as many, but I have seen all 40 manias up to this point. But most of those early ones, I was watching in my adult life, going back to watch as a kid.
Bet.
We did not have access to pay per view, and then
Hmm.
once we got access to pay per view, there was no way that this kid was asking his parents for the kind of money it would take to watch a wrestling
Hmm.
show. Don't you just watch that all the time on Saturday? I knew that that was a non-starter. I was not going to get Mania in my house. I don't remember for certain about this, Doug, but I am pretty sure when I started to think about it, the first Mania I actually watched live that I
Was it?
paid to watch, it was
Uh-huh.
maybe WrestleMania 15, which would have been 1999,
Hmm.
when Cold Stone and The Rock met up for the first time that they met up in a main event. Do you remember the first one you actually watched as live as it was happening?
I do not actually, because I'm thinking maybe like the early WrestleManias, because there was no access, like you say, no access to pay-per-view. I don't think I even really understood what the whole concept of pay-per-view for the longest time when it was a kid, and honestly, I was much more into like WCW, the those wrestlers than I ever was at that time, even into my gosh, for quite a while, even during like the height of wrestling, I was more of a WCW guy, uh, because it was just more, it just hit real, as
You,
opposed to those cartoon characters. And until the Attitude Era came in and kind of started working against it, but I cannot remember the actual first one I watched, but live anyway. But I'm thinking WrestleMania 3, I might have seen on like VHS, like rented it
yeah,
from like a video store or something like that, where we're
I
in the
think,
town where we
yeah,
grew up.
yep. I think that I probably had a VHS watch of a Mania as my
Hmm.
actual first, and 3 would have probably been the one I would have gone for had it been
Hmm.
available.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I didn't. I don't know that it wasn't until the 90s, and probably after the Attitude Era, like the late 90s, that I actually started to go back and see all of the old original WrestleManias to get caught up, as it were. I think I
Uh-huh.
probably got so enamored by watching 15 that I had to felt like I needed to go back and watch the others, which I
You're such
eventually
a
did. But
completist. You got to complete the
I,
collection.
yeah, even the bad ones. I watched the bad
Yeah.
ones, and there are a few clunkers in there too. Because that's probably a good segue because I know we've done shows prior during other Mania seasons where we discuss the event and our memories of it. Do you have an all time favorite? I'm on record. I can't remember if we asked you if you had an all time favorite before.
3 is
Oh, it's classic. Yeah, that's a good one.
that's Savage Steamboat, right? Is it?
Oh yeah,
Is it?
Savage Steamboat,
Yeah.
Andre Hogan.
Yeah.
I'm on record saying 17 is my all-time fave, and that's not a left field pick or anything because it's often makes a lot of these best of Mania or best pay per view ever. Some would say, but you look at that card once again. That was the one that was headlined second time around by Rock and Stone Cold, and this is the one where they were the hottest they could be. It was kind of a
Hmm.
culmination of the Attitude Era. It kind of ended on that night. That's when in that main event, Vince and Stone Cold aligned, which shocked
Yeah.
everybody. It also was the one that had Undertaker versus Triple H. It had the TLC
Hmm.
2 match with the Hardys, Dudleys, Edge, and Christian. You had Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit match, Shane Vince. You had Jericho Regal, just on and on. There was not a bad match on that card. It was absolutely one of, as we sometimes will say, a perfect pay per view. That one was a perfect.
Hmm.
I can argue that one was a perfect pay per view, but not all manias are created equal. Obviously, it's been a while since they've had a down and out clunker like a WrestleMania 2 or a WrestleMania 11. But most of the time, when you have 2 nights, especially, you're going to get a
Hmm.
mix of good and bad. Some just end up middling and they don't rise to the occasion. Um, so, with that said, Doug, we are not predicting winners and losers here. We have a whole prediction show with
No.
that. Let's judge
Oh,
each of the Mania contests
yes.
on their Mania worthiness. We're talking the road to WrestleMania and how these are doing on that road. I want to start. Let's talk about a couple that have not been made official, but are
Okay.
either strongly rumored or very, very obvious as to where we are headed. Solo Sokoa versus Jacob Fatu.
Yes, please.
I mean, to me, yeah, absolutely. Yes, please, because I want to see it. Yes, please, because I want to see Fatu continue his build to where we think he's going to go. But
Hmm.
in the wake of the main bloodline versus new bloodline storyline
Hmm.
kind of over with, I think that for an undercard match, a solo versus Jacob Fatu with a month to go, they're just planting seeds. So
Hmm.
we're right at the start of that road. But I think that has all the makings of a perfect undercard match for a WrestleMania.
Undercard, absolutely. The thing about Solo, where I think he's done excellent work in his role from enforcer to stand-in tribal chief while Roman took a little vacation. It he's never really I've never really looked at him as like a main eventer, and I hate to say that because I'm going to say that about his brother here in a minute too. But yeah, Jacob Fatu, absolutely. Let's get Jacob on the road. Let's, he's all gas, no brakes anyway. Let's strap that rocket to him and just let him go. That's let's go. But as a mid card, yeah, this is good for a mid card. But then let's get Jacob moving on up the ladder.
I think if they're going to get the kind of heat on this that makes it like a blood feud WrestleMania, family versus family match, which is what this would
Hmm.
be. I think they need to probably pull a trigger on a turn sometime very soon.
Hmm.
I mean, at this point, like you said, we're recording this, we're airing it this weekend. We are a month out,
Yeah.
almost exactly a month out as we record this. By the time it airs, we'll be less than a month out. They have to start with a few weeks of Jacob Fatu promos if they really want to have as much heat on this as you can get, which I know that they would. It can get to Mania level,
Hmm.
but they need to start it soon if they are actually going to deliver on it.
Yes.
And if they don't start it soon, then this is maybe a rumored match that they decide they didn't have time for, then they're going to save for down the line. But it is strongly rumored, but the time is now.
So we're gonna talk about that in a minute, right? The main event. See what I did there?
Oh, dum-dum.
Thank
This
you.
is one that I think has to have a resolution at WrestleMania, and that is Jade Cargill in what will probably be her first WrestleMania singles match. I don't think this will end up a tag or
No.
a three-way, but I do believe that she will get her chance at revenge against Naomi.
Yeah, I thought this may go another way, but I can see this coming together with Jade Naomi because I think Bianca is thoroughly tied up in something else now. There was a
Yeah,
time when I thought they would reveal Bianca to be the big baddie behind it, and it was all of her. It was her all
and
along, Austin. Yeah,
and
but
they still may. It just may not be until after Mania.
oh, yeah, that's true because maybe yeah, maybe so.
She has to have somewhere to go after she dispatches of Naomi because I
Yep.
mean, this isn't obviously a main event. This is a revenge. Again, not every match can be the main event. This is going to be something that either can open or be on a pre-show. It's something to get Jade on the card, Naomi on the
Hmm.
card, and Jade on to her next thing. Again, we're not predicting, but I think we know how this
Yeah,
has to
and,
go.
and I hate to say this again because I'm not dumping on the Fatus, but again, Naomi, a great talent, but not a main event talent. A main event in TNA, sure. In WWE, not so much. I don't think so. Nothing knocking her, but I don't think she's at that level either to carry like a Bianca Belair or a Rhea Ripley air about her.
I will say that because this is won't be positioned as anything other than either pre-show or mid-card or even
Hmm.
opening. I think that Mania worthy, um, with the potential of a Jade Cargill and then the acting those two women did to bring the
Hmm.
tears and all, like they've got a story, they've got a build,
Yeah.
they have a and
Yes.
and the seed was planted months and months ago. If this was
Hmm.
actually thought out way back then, or if this is just how they're salvaging a real life injury situation, either way you go, it has enough story on it that I completely find that this would be a WrestleMania contest.
And I agree with that. Definitely not a main event. I like your positioning of it, but I think it would be more than pre-show, just because they've got to, start getting some payoff in that investment that is Jade, and Naomi is a good hand to get that over with.
Yeah.
But anything beyond like one of the openers, no. But yes, WrestleMania worthy because of the build, because of the story that's built in there. Sure.
This next one, Doug, I think has the potential to be WrestleMania worthy, but it's been off to a kind of a rough start, even though I like both men involved. And that is Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. The seeds for this one were planted all the way back in Royal Rumble, and that infamously got out to a bit of a
Hmm.
rocky start when the elimination didn't go as those involved had hoped that it would. It was clunky, and then they had a clunky encounter at Elimination Chamber as well. Really, um, I don't know. This one needs some work to feel like what I think they want it to be. Does it have potential? Absolutely. The two men in the ring are giant, athletic men who shouldn't be able to do what guys of their strength and size
Mm-hmm.
actually can do. So will they pull off a great match? Probably. Does it have the feel of a Mania match? Not yet, not to me.
I'm going to say definitely not for me. I don't know what both guys could be doing differently at Mania, but I'm just not even excited about the prospect of this. Yes, they could pull something together and make it great. They can do some. I don't think there's a lot of WWE talent that can do what AEW talent can do and put on a great in-ring match. Of course, I do love the flippy floppy high flyers, but put on a great match and have me walk away going, "Wow, that was great!" Even though I have no story, no build to it, it just happened. There's not a lot of talent in WWE that can do that. Not saying it doesn't exist, but these two big dudes, I need some story. I need some investment. I need some heat. I need something, and it's just not there for me now.
No, this is one I think that right now, if Mania was to happen this weekend, I would say they didn't get there. And so maybe
Mm-hmm.
they will surprise us, but we're halfway down that road, and there's a lot more work to go with this one for it to be where I think they want it on the card. But we'll see.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about wrestling is me being wrong about wrestling because I love being surprised and I love going, "Wow, I totally didn't see that coming." So I hope I'm wrong, but it's just not hitting right.
Not yet.
Not no,
Um,
yeah, not yet. I mean, we are far out, but not yet for me.
This one is in the simmer. It's not cooking, it's just starting, but because of the history between these two men, the background, not yet official, but obviously the way we're going, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, RKO, one on one. It's Kevin Owens. So it's
Hmm.
going to be great in the ring. Randy's Randy. You either love him or you don't love him, but he is someone who has been a known name for a long period of time, has a long history with Kevin Owens, can rise to the occasion with the right opponent. Kevin Owens is the right opponent for anyone because he's just that darn good. For me, I think they'll get there with this one. I mean, Sammy was the surrogate. So in some ways, this story's been
Hmm.
going for a while, even without Randy's presence.
Yeah,
Randy's been in the wings, and therefore this feels like it's more developed than it actually is. They really haven't done a ton yet, but Kevin Owens sells like no one else when it comes to his work on the microphone, and then we know he can bring it in the ring. So this is what I'm excited about. This is one I think, yeah, this is a Mania non-main event, but a feature contest at Mania. This is what one looks like to me.
agreed. Two big name talents who can bring it in the ring, and you got the storyline that's been pseudo simmering, like you say, for quite a while, coming up through WrestleMania season, and then you got your big comeback at Elimination Chamber to say, okay, here's where it all starts coming together. So I think this one mapped out much like Cargill and Naomi mapped out with a historical perspective leading into it. This works as WrestleMania, and like I said, WrestleMania does start a little bit earlier every year anyway. So just like Christmas.
I have one more. Well, okay, I have actually two more not yet official matches. One
All
is
right.
it might as well be official. This is the one that is definitely going to take not some work. I think that it's just so early that this one's hard to predict whether or not they are going to give it the build it deserves. As to whether or not it will feel like a Mania level match, I have no doubt that it will. But Penta
Oh,
is a shiny
yes.
new toy for WWE, and
Hmm.
to their credit, the old Vince McMahon era of WWE didn't always know what to do with luchadors.
Mm-mm.
They have done an excellent job of positioning Penta as a big deal. He was in
Yes.
he's already main evented Raw. He's not been around that long, and it already feels like he's done more in
Hmm.
WWE than he did the last 2 years in AEW.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just true. And he wants an intercontinental title. And I honestly feel like an intercontinental title program at this stage of his WWE career is the perfect stepping stone championship for him to go after. And right now, it is held by a man who is also quite the phenomenon in his own right, and that
Mm-hmm.
is Braun Breaker. So if you want to sell me on, okay, we're going to put Intercontinental title on the line at Mania, which wasn't in some years, the Intercontinental title had fallen so far off people's radar. There were many years that Intercontinental title was not even defended on Mania. I think that they've done a lot to rehabilitate that title. Thank you, Gunther. But I do feel like if you want to put an IC match on Mania, you could not do much better than a young phenom like a Braun Breaker versus a shiny new to most WWE fans toy in a Penta.
So I know I just said there's not a lot of talent in WWE that could pick up a storyline, with just a few beats and run with it and do an awesome match. These are two of those guys who could do that in WWE. And yeah, 10 minutes or 10 weeks of build is great for a match with these guys. And if you're new to Penta, you're already getting schooled and clued in on
Wow.
what's going on with Penta, just with what WWE is doing with him. And if you've been around for more than 10 minutes as a WWE fan, you know Breaker, you know his family history, his lineage there. It's This one is definitely a WWE WrestleMania feel to it. I don't think. I mean, we just have some time to build now, which is great. So yeah, I'm checking this box. This one definitely WrestleMania worthy.
Do you think this one actually benefits from the fact that it is an intercontinental title? Like that is the story. Like I want a
Yes.
championship. You don't have to. Oh, we have a month and we have to rush into building a personal thing between these two men. It's as simple as, hey, I'm here for championships and you're holding a championship. Sometimes the
Hmm.
championship can become the story, and it doesn't need to be personal or someone like,
Right.
burn someone's house down or or turn on them
Right.
this one is just a plain old like you're standing in my way to the top
Hmm.
and you're the next step on that rung because you're the Intercontinental Championship, and we all historically know that's one rung away from the big title.
Yep.
Perfect placement for both of these guys. I don't
Absolutely.
even care who wins. I just want to I want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one. I mean, these are two great talents that, yeah, I'm all for this one.
Here's the last one that is pretty certain now. There was a time that I thought it might be a one-on-one. It's pretty certain now it's a three-way. It's not yet official, but we will be getting Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I will say I'm not a huge fan in general of the multi-person matchups. I prefer one-on-one contests. There's
Hmm.
part of me that wishes it was Seth versus CM Punk and continuing their feud, or even Seth versus Reigns continuing their decades-long, breakup of the Shield storyline.
Yeah.
Um, I don't doubt that the three of these men will bring it. I think it was last week that you had listed. I think 2 weeks in a row you called out one of these three men as being your performer of the week for the job they're
Hmm.
doing selling this story. So I'm in for this as a attraction at Mania. These are three big stars who could conceivably be in a main event. Instead, they need something consequential for them to do. So what else can you do except putting in there against each other so that it still feels big?
Yeah. You know, yeah, I think it is huge with these three guys. Like you, I would rather see a one-on-one of any combination of these three characters. With this, I know we're going to get a shield power bomb, a shield team up at some point, and somebody's going to get a power bomb through a table. Well, if it's a shield team up, then that means Punk's going through a table with a Ouya at some point. But
He will. He definitely will.
yeah, but we're going to see some greatest hits from everybody during this, and it's almost like one of those feel good kind of WrestleMania things, even though it probably won't feel good for the men involved to have these big names going at it. This one, this is another one that gets a box check for me. I think even with the awkward Reigns schedule where there's not a lot of time for him to be around to build, that
Yeah.
character doesn't need to be around to build.
Is
It
that why it
can.
has to be a triple threat though? Because he wouldn't be there to do the one-on-one, the
I'd
build.
say,
Like you
I
can build it without him.
yeah, you can definitely build without him, and I think that's what they will do. I mean, you can always have Paul, who is going to be there
Oh
every
yeah,
week.
there's a
But
favor somewhere and
yeah,
lurking in all this.
exactly. I mean, and the seeds for this were sprinkled a long time ago too. So there's lots going on here, lots of moving parts to a lot of these stories. Yeah, to your point earlier that they don't have to all be personal, but a lot of these stories that we're getting leading into WrestleMania, very long game plans here for them, or at least they're coming together as if there was a plan all along. Either way, I'm cool with it.
I would like to see something added to it. I don't know that it won't. I like to see some stakes since these guys are not in any title matches, and since this is um, maybe because they're all three main eventers, maybe whoever comes out of this is next in line for the championship. I just feel like there's something else they could do between now and Mania to make it feel like even bigger moment on the card, and maybe they will. But yeah, like you, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like it might need that little something extra.
Hmm.
We're into the official matches now, Doug. We have four of those that we know are occurring.
Yeah.
The first of which is the Women's World Championship, which at one point we thought was going to be Io versus Bianca. That is the official version, mind
Yep.
you. I guess I maybe spoke too soon. Is that it's very apparent that we're going to have a three-way, and Mommy is
Another
not
one.
officially added yet. Yeah, exactly. Another one. Are we overdoing that on the WrestleMania weekend cards?
You
You
know
have
what?
one on one. You put one on one night and one on the other just to make sure they don't feel the same ish.
You've got to. You've got to, since you're doing 2 nights of this, you've got to do that just to break up that almost, monotony of having them back to back. You can't do that. You can't. No, they do have to be split up.
I felt like Bianca Rhea was an obvious like big woman matchup of
Hmm.
folks we haven't really seen match up on the big brand. So that
Yes.
felt Mania to me. I like being surprised. You said earlier, just prove
Yeah.
me wrong, and
Exactly. I love it.
EO deserves it. I think the storyline right now seems to be that the two powerhouses still think that they're each other's biggest enemy, and EO, despite being the champion, is
Hmm.
the underdog, as the fly in the ointment. You're in my way. They're just almost dismissing her. I think that might definitely work in the advantage of telling this story. If you're going to go with the 3-person matchup, I think it'll definitely feel Mania worthy. I think though that if they keep going at this route, you really have 3 faces, and at the
Hmm.
route they're going, it is definitely going to be a story where this crowd is going to be about Io Sky and will turn on the other two if they keep acting the way that they've been positioned up to this point.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's kind of hints that Bianca, or maybe I'm just misreading, but it kind of seems like she just slightly keeps shifting heel,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
ever
And
so slowly.
which why is I think that it's still possible that post WrestleMania that she may have known all along what Naomi did,
Hmm.
and
That's
we don't
fair.
find that out until later. Because I agree with you, she's etching that way.
Hmm.
And same, we didn't mention it with the men's three way, but same sort of thing. I mean, at one point, not that long
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
these were 3 faces. Well,
Hmm.
Roman's going to be in the middle because
Yes.
Roman's divisive. Seth is definitely taking on the heel role because the fans won't turn against Punk. So I think
Hmm.
you have to do something similar in this dynamic. You can't have 3 faces, and so we might see that etching closer to heel happen a little
Hmm.
quicker and accelerate over the next month.
Yeah, I can see that.
How about this next one? This might be the hardest one to talk about. World Heavyweight Championship on the men's side. Gunther versus Jey Uso. And I say it might be the hardest to talk about is that in general, I like both men. Gunther especially. I feel like maybe as much as I loved Gunther as NXT champion, as Intercontinental champion, I don't know that his world title reign has been as illustrious as I would have hoped. And
Hmm.
then you give him Jay, Uso, who while is super over with the crowd, um, I don't feel is a singles main eventer just yet. So This one would have a hard time. I mean, there's no way this would be a headlining match. Obviously, even though it's a world championship, it's going to be a mid card match on either Saturday or Sunday. Other than the fact that it has the title going for it, I'm not necessarily feeling this one yet.
I'm not feeling this one at all. I hate to come down on the Fatu family again, but you
You're
can
off
call
their
him.
wrestling Christmas list, by the
I know, and I'm sorry, guys. I really do love y'all, but yeah, we can call me main event Doug Hager. It doesn't make me a main eventer. It just doesn't. And he is over with the crowd. I get it, eh, but I'm just not feeling that. I'm just not feeling Jay in a WrestleMania main event. I definitely do not think it can be a main event. And as far as Gunther, man, I have really not cared much for his this title run he's had for the most part. I was super excited when he first got the title. It was like, this is going to be awesome, and it's just ever so slightly, well, like Bianca, ever so slightly shifting to the hill. I've ever so slowly just kind of drifted away from really even caring what Gunther's doing, and I hate that.
I hate that too. And I think those two things combined, maybe not quite their opponent and a title reign that I feel like WWE's sort of given up on, sort of makes this feel like a lame duck, like foregone conclusion, like
Yeah.
going through the motions kind of thing. Again, I hope they prove us wrong. They have a month to do so,
Yes.
but right now, I am very glad we have these other matches, because if this was the actual main event, that it made it feel
Hmm.
like it might be after the Royal Rumble victory, I think we all would be a little more disappointed where this was going.
Hmm.
I'm not disappointed where this next one's going. That is the WWE Women's Championship. Tiffany
Hmm.
Stratton versus Charlotte Flair. You have the old guard establishment Flair in a main event at Mania,
Uh-huh.
and then you have the up and coming Tiffy Time, who as champion has taken the world by storm. The wrestling fans love her, despite the fact that all of her mannerisms are that of a heel. Um,
Yes.
this one is also because of Stratton's relative newness to the main roster and Charlotte Flair having been injured for so long. I feel like even though some people have soured on Charlotte, I feel like this, just on its face, of
Mhm.
two different generations clashing, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Charlotte Flair. We've got like the next, big star on the women's side here. I mean, she already has the strap.
It's
This one,
Mania.
yeah, it's Mania. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which leaves us with one. And I think that we'll get through this one as quick as we just got through that one, because
Hmm.
you have to hang your hat on something. There are some WrestleManias that literally were one match shows where you look back and go, there was not much consequential on here, but it had this great main event that they put all their attention on. It's obvious that WWE is not putting all their attention on it. They're building a lot of these others. We seem pretty high for the most part on most of this
Hmm.
card, but it all would be for naught if you had a main event that no one was interested in. That is not the
Hmm.
case for Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. I will go so far, Doug, as to say I honestly believe they might have the opportunity, with still a month to go, to tell a story as great, maybe not greater, but as great and as memorable as what they did last year with Rhodes chasing Roman Reigns and finally overcoming and finishing the story at the end. I think they can have a very good shot at telling a story that epic again, as thanks to the John Cena heel turn.
The John Cena heel turn makes this so much more epic. Before we had Cena, Cody, babyface versus babyface. We saw this coming. We didn't see that heel turn coming at all, though, and that makes all the difference in this build-up going forward. Uh,
All the difference.
it can be a little clunky. I think there's some opportunities for some clunkiness because Cena has a limited number of appearances, so he's not going to be on every week going to WrestleMania. Cody's going to have to carry this a bit on his own, but I think that they can work around those kind of things. And there's still clunkiness with it, like the whole Rock involvement and just some other things that aren't really hitting with me just right now after I've come down off the high that Cena Hill turned. But I mean, it's a Cena heel turn. You've got Cody. What do you call it? The white meat baby face. It's
It feels that is the poster, and I
yeah.
mean, it would have been a big deal without the turn. But if you didn't watch our show last week, go see it in the archives. The John
Yes.
Cena's heel turn changes everything. It changes my thoughts on Cody Cena as main eventing. It's absolutely the
Hmm.
main event now. Nothing else could be the main event,
Oh
regardless of where
yeah.
they go. Will it deliver? Time will tell. But the build thus far, the heel turn alone, the shock of it, the extra elements of the Rock, everything they've done up to this point makes me feel like this is going to be the story, the
Hmm.
thing that we're all excited about come Mania weekend here in a month.
Yeah. This is going to be last last match Sunday
Last night.
night. Yeah, last
Absolutely.
match last night. True main event. They go on last, and we'll see what happens.
So for the most part, by my count, we outside of just a couple of notable
Yeah.
exceptions, we either think that there's a possibility for them to heat up some of these matches, or they're already there and we just need to leave them simmering all the way to the big weekend itself. That means it's been a pretty good road to WrestleMania thus far, and we have a
Thus
month
far.
to go. We have a month to go.
Absolutely.
We only have a few more minutes to go, Doug. Let's hit a big finish.
Let's hit a big finish. Well, you mentioned earlier that we are pre-recording because I have some obligations this weekend. So appreciate you taking the time out of your busy week to get us on the air this Sunday. So we all know, because I've said it many and many a time, the weekend is my time to catch up on wrestling. So I had watched Raw. So I'm not going to drop, a performer, a match, and a botch, but I do want to call out one thing as a botch,
Go for it.
and this is going to be controversial, but
Okay.
I have got to call botch on that Cena. Here's why I turned baby from babyface to heel, because did Kevin Owens write his promo for him? That was a straight up Kevin Owens promo. Come on. I'm not a heel. I'm not a babyface. I'm a human being. This is all your all's fault. You people turn. It makes me annoyed at the. Of course, he even calls me out by saying, "Hey, I'm not changing all this for anybody. I'm coming out here the way I've always
Yeah.
come out." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool."
I like
But
that.
then,
Yeah, I like that.
it was straight up a KO promo. KO has been doing this so much lately and so much better than John Cena just did it. KO's not in like major like movies, and HBO shows. I expected more from Cena there, man. I did. I mean, I'm still totally on board with the Cena heel turn. Don't get me wrong. Still totally on board with Cena Cody at WrestleMania. But that was just it was just bad. It was just, all I could think was, this is KO. This is, come on, do better.
So let me get my botch first, and then I'll
Okay.
address that, because my botch of the week was Rhea Ripley signing a contract, and
Yeah.
just by taking it, and now it's like she's maybe in the match because of it.
Right. That's
It's
not how this
out of
works. Yeah.
it's wrestling logic, and it's
Hmm.
okay, whatever. But there's got to be an easier, better way to get her involved in that triple threat than to just have her destroy two people and sign a contract. Go down to
Hmm.
your local lawyer's office next time somebody's for getting their house or something, and turn the table over and put your name on it. Let's see if that holds up. Just a little ridiculous. Now,
Yeah.
performance of the week. Mine is also controversial because
Mhm.
I realize that it is divisive. And it's obviously divisive. The internet wrestling community was divided, and obviously the two bros are divided. I'm giving my performance of the week to John Cena. It was not, was it perfect? No, it was not necessarily what I thought we would hear.
Hmm.
It also didn't cover everything I thought we would cover. It was odd that The Rock
Hmm.
was not
No
mentioned by
mention
either
at all.
Cena or
Uh-huh.
Cody.
Yeah.
I also would not have minded Cena putting some focus on wanting to be a 17-time champion as part of why
Hmm.
he's doing this. He didn't even talk about Cody or the championship at all until halfway through the promo, when
Hmm.
Cody sort of made himself part of the conversation. And yes, we did get the jorts and same old music, though I actually really liked the whole explanation of I'm not changing just because
Which
you think I
I did
should.
like that. Yeah.
There's plenty of time for me to fill out the rest of the story before Mania, but for night one of John Cena explaining his motivations, this whole I've been in an abusive relationship because you all have turned on me for 20 years. He's breaking up with us, Doug. I thought it was kind of awesome. I can buy that as a rationale. Again, not perfect, absolutely not perfect,
Right.
but I liked it.
Divisive.
Match of the week. I don't know if you
What you
had
got?
one from what you well.
I really don't. So
So
not yet anyway.
I'm going to call out somebody that I called out for the wrong reasons last show, and John Moxley and Cope. For as bad as a match as they had main eventing Revolution, is as good of a contest as they had on this past week's Dynamite. Again, not perfect,
Okay. Haven't
but
watched it yet.
well, one is a street fight, so I
Oh
don't
well,
know.
Mox.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
I don't know if it's fair that maybe outside of that style of match, that maybe John Moxley's matches aren't quite as enticing until he does
Mm-hmm.
what John Moxley does best, and
Yeah.
he does that pretty well. There is maybe the most gruesome spot I have ever seen in a pro wrestling match, and this was not on a
Mm.
pay-per-view. Doug, I will just say it was not a barbed wire bat. It was basically long spikes in a bat. And when John Moxley gets up, the bat gets up with him into his, I mean, it's hanging from his skin. The spikes are
Mm.
in obviously in his back, and they try to take it out. And it's, I mean, you see it pulling the skin. This was not gimmicked in any way. It was brutal. But it also was very good. And I don't want to give anything away since Doug hasn't seen it as to who wins or anything, but you should go watch it. Again, not everyone's cup of tea, but after calling them out for having a really boring contest the week before, whether you like this one or don't like it, no one's going to watch it and think it's boring.
Wow. All right. I'll have to check that out.
And with that,
Oh.
we are off until next Sunday night. So we do have another company that we want to give a little bit of shine to. AEW, actually, they have a pay-per-view coming up. So it's their last big show before WrestleMania, and we're going to be talking Mania in our next few shows after that. So we're fair and balanced here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show.
Absolutely.
We will make sure everyone knows all there is to know about AEW Dynamite. I'm sorry, AEW Dynasty. That'll be the preview on our next broadcast. And AEW always knocks it out of the park with their pay-per-view. So if you're not watching their pay-per-views and based just on their TV product, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. Go pregame with us. We'll catch you up on everything you need to know, and we'll be predicting winners and losers. And that is on March 30th when we return live on YouTube. Next day airings, of course, on Facebook.
All right, folks, go watch some wrestling. I've got a lot to do. Thanks for watching us. Subscribe, comment, like, do all the good fun stuff. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.